What do you do when the very industry that your family has built its legacy on is, well, dying? This is a story about survival, about how one company, faced with a crisis, found a way to reinvent itself. This is the story of Somedia. And right from the start, you can feel the weight of this challenge. That's a quote from Suzanne Lieberman, and it really gets to the heart of it. This isn't just about profits and losses on a spreadsheet. For her, it's about a family's life's work and the responsibility to keep it alive for the future.
So picture this. It's 2018. A new generation, including Suzanne, steps up to lead the family company. But the business they're inheriting is in an industry that's in a free fall. The ground is literally crumbling beneath their feet, and the clock is ticking. All right, so let's unpack this dilemma. First, who exactly is Somedia, and what was really at stake here?
Okay, so Somedia wasn't some small-time operation. You have to understand, they were the media backbone of their entire region in Switzerland. We're talking newspapers, a TV station, a radio station. They were a huge part of daily life, reaching 8 out of 10 people in their area. They were a big deal.
And these are the two people at the center of our story. You have Suzanne Lieberman representing that next generation of the family, and the new CEO, Thomas Kundert. Their job? To figure out how to steer this legacy company into a future that looked nothing like its past. No pressure, right?
So what was this massive crisis they were facing? Well, it wasn't something they did wrong. It was more like an earthquake shaking the foundations of the entire media world.
You know the story. As we all started getting our news and information online, the traditional business model for newspapers just started to fall apart. And when you look at the numbers from that time, they don't just whisper problem, they absolutely scream it. Just take a look at this. The two main ways newspapers make money, advertising and subscriptions, were both in a nosedive. Print ad revenue in Switzerland was dropping by a staggering 10% every single year. Subscriptions were falling too. Both of their main income streams were just drying up. And here's what that looks like in the real world for Somedia. 80,000. That's how many daily papers they were selling by 2018. Now that might sound like a lot, but not when you consider their peak was 145,000. Nearly half of their readers had just vanished.
And this is the really scary part. This wasn't some small piece of their business. A whopping 63% of all their money was tied directly to that dying print market. They were completely and totally exposed. Talk about having all your eggs in a shrinking basket.
But here's the twist. They weren't actually losing money, not yet anyway. The old business was still bringing in cash, but everyone knew it was like standing on a melting iceberg. The profits they were making today were just masking the massive disaster that was right around the corner.
So this brings us to the big strategic puzzle. What on earth do you do when the whole world is changing and the old rulebook is completely useless?
Naturally, the new leadership looked at what the big guys were doing to survive. Some like the New York Times went global, others jumped into digital businesses, some just started buying up all their rivals. But for Somedia, none of that was an option. They were proudly regional, fiercely independent, and they just weren't big enough to play those games.
And that was the fundamental question they were facing. They couldn't just copy and paste a solution from someone else. They had to innovate, to invent a path forward that was all their own. So, where do you even start?
Well, it turns out the answer wasn't some brilliant new idea from the outside. It was something they already had, something that was hidden in plain sight the entire time.
This was the big breakthrough. Instead of chasing some shiny new business model they didn't understand, they decided to stop and look inward. They started asking a really simple but powerful question. What are we really good at, beyond just making a newspaper?
And this is the aha moment. They reframed everything. Their newspaper delivery system? No, that's a sophisticated logistics operation that covers the whole region. Their ad sales team? That's actually a direct relationship with 8,000 local businesses. And the newsroom? It's not just for news. It's a content factory that can produce text, audio, and video for anyone. They realized their real value wasn't just the newspaper, but in all the amazing capabilities they had built to produce it.
So with this totally new way of looking at themselves, what was the actual plan? How do you turn these hidden strengths into a real strategy for the future?
The CEO, Thomas Kundert, really laid out the mindset they needed. He basically said, look, we have to respect our past, but we can't let nostalgia blind us to what's really happening. The choice was brutally simple: reinvent or disappear. And here's the strategy they came up with, in 3 simple steps. First, Don't just abandon the old newspaper business. Squeeze every last drop of profit out of it for as long as you can. Second, use all that cash as an engine to fund the transformation. And third, take those reframed capabilities, logistics, content creation, sales networks, and use them to build brand new businesses in markets that were actually growing.
And you know, when you peel it all back, this transformation was about so much more than saving a company. It was about saving its mission. By reinventing itself, Somedia could make sure that its community would continue to have a strong, independent voice, which is so vital for local culture and democracy.
And that really leaves us with a question to think about. Somedia's story is an incredible reminder that when the ground shifts beneath your feet, sometimes the most powerful tools you have are the ones you've been taking for granted all along. So it makes you wonder, what are yours?